Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's episode. Today I have someone who is just one of the most influential people in my life and a lot of people's lives. She's someone everybody looks up to. She is somebody who just emulates Christ, and she's just, all the good things. Please welcome my good friend, Jan Brown. Thank you so much for being here, Miss Jan.
Thanks, Adrian, for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you today about a few things, but just to kind of go off, start off, how do you remember, just kind of like a little icebreaker, do you remember meeting for the first time? Meeting me?
Meeting you. Let me think about this.
And there's a reason why I'm asking this question, which I'll get to in just a second.
Okay. I think that the first time I met you might have been after a buckhorn trip, but the first time I really got to know you was when we went together to Buckhorn on that Labor of Love, that Labor Day weekend.
Yep. So I remember it's so weird. We were just talking a second ago about how God works things out.
Oh, 100%.
Timing and just how his plan is just, all over the place. I remember I met your husband Steve and your daughter Courtney before I met you. Fell in love with Courtney, and then Steve took a little while. But I met them and I thought, wow, these people are amazing. And then I met you. We went to dinner one night.
Right.
And I was like, oh, she's wonderful. She's just the nicest person in the world. And I was like, yeah, she's Courtney's mom. She's really cool. She's really fun. She's really sweet and everything. And then my second conversation with you at Buckhorn, at the cabin, we had a conversation about something, and you looked at me and you said, when are you going to move to Georgia? When are you're going to be a part of?
I remember saying that.
Yeah, you're going to be a part of our church one day. I just know it. And in my mind, I was like, okay, well, this is a little weird because it was my second conversation, but I was like, cool, whatever. And then 3 years later, here I am. So I just think that's really
it's funny that you say that because actually you were a topic of conversation in Sunday school this morning with my older ladies.
Oh, that's funny.
And we talked about the same thing. We talked about how God brought you here and how purposeful it is for not just you, but for us too.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk to you today about a few topics. The first one I want to get into is just kind of tell me a little bit about your upbringing. The main topic is going to be about your work with kids. You have been you're a retired director of a preschool forever, but you've worked with kids for a long time. You've have done phenomenal in what you've been able to do, and you've been blessed in that. But I want to talk about just your upbringing, your family, kind of how that was for you. Just kind of take me back in the beginning.
So I grew up in the church. I mean, I don't know of a time that I remember in my head when we were not churched. My dad was military. Mom was a stay-at-home wife, and so honestly, the longest we lived anywhere was in Oklahoma for 3 years, but we were just all over the place. And
did you enjoy being a military kid?
I loved to go. It was just well, I have to back up and say we never lived out of the United States. So, but we lived a lot of places in the South, and then moved to Oklahoma, which is where I graduated from high school. And in each of those places, one of the first things Mom and Dad always did was find a church.
Yeah.
And to be real with you, my dad was a flight engineer, so he was gone all the time. And I don't know how Mom would have survived without a church because she had 4 children, 2 years between each of us.
Yeah.
And then a third year between the youngest and the third child. So she was always away from family. And now that I've raised children, I realize we have that in common, and how important her church life was, not just for us to know the Lord, but to get the support that she needed.
Yeah. So you mentioned your siblings. You are the oldest,
right,
out of all 4 of them.
Right.
I've met 3 of y'all. I haven't met your sister, the youngest one, but I'm sure she's great. So were you did Grandma Pat, did your mom look to you to not necessarily help raise them, but just kind of
I
help
was
guide
the babysitter.
them? You were the babysitter?
Yeah, on Saturday morning, she always went and got her hair done. And it was my job to take care of everybody while she would leave. And she did the crazy thing of leaving us a chore list on the refrigerator.
Oh.
And on that list were my name would have several things. David's name, Linda's name, Cliff's name, each with different items. And if we did them, we got our allowance. And if we didn't do them, there was no allowance.
Right.
So, just that kind of thing. And then I think with there being 2 years between each of us, I think we just kind of raised each other, honestly. And then we all kind of took care of the youngest.
Yeah, that's how it is, and that's how it was in my family with me and my two sisters. Where right now we're 24, 25, and 26. So there's there was no. Oh well, you just watch your younger two siblings. Well, we're all watching ourselves. You know, we had to have somebody watch all three of us when we were really little, because it wasn't just okay. Well, you watch them. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
Neighbors took care of each other back in the day. I mean, you raised each other's kids, you lived at each other's houses, all those sort of things, being on base especially. Yeah.
So you have a huge heart and a huge blessing of being able to work with kids of all different backgrounds and ages and of everything. Have you always had that, or did that come easy for you?
I think Dad's life in the military makes me not see color. I mean, I don't view it as different races, because we just always lived together,
Right.
So that doesn't really affect me at all. I like the bad kids.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry, but I'm kind of drawn to them because they're inquisitive usually, and they're funny when they get in trouble. Yeah. Especially a young child, But I think that they are.
And you learn a lot from them.
You do learn a lot from them, but you also have just such a big opportunity to influence their lives.
Right.
Because most children, in my opinion, who we title as being bad, are just attention seeking and need somebody to love on them, and I'm all over that.
Yeah.
So
talk to me about what did you want to do when you were younger, as in terms of a job? Like when I grow up I want to be, what was that statement for you?
I don't think I've ever wanted to be anything other than a teacher. Yeah. And to be real with you, teaching in kindergarten in a church program could not have been any more up my alley. Yeah. I do remember a time in my life very distinctly. I was living in Oklahoma. I was 16. It was during a revival, and that we had altar calls back in the day. And so, at the end of the service, the preacher's up there waiting at the altar, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go forward. And I knew God. I mean, I knew who Jesus was. There was no question at all. Right. And so I went forward, and my preacher, sweet man, and he said, what's wrong? And I said, nothing's wrong. I just think God's calling me to do something. And he said, okay, well, let's pray about it. And so, we got down on our knees, and we're praying at the altar. Yeah. And he's praying, and I feel like everybody can hear it, because preachers pray loud. Yeah. And my mom's in the service, Dad wasn't, and my brothers and sisters. And he finishes his prayer, and he said, what did God tell you? And I said, I don't know. And he said, okay, let's pray some more. I was like, really?
Just keep going.
And so he prayed again, and I'm praying too. And again, he said to me, what is God saying to you? I said, I don't know. And so we prayed again, and literally it was 3 whole times. And at the end of it, he said, does God want you to be a missionary? And I said, I don't know. And he said, okay. And so he stood up, and he said, Jan's come forward tonight to rededicate her life. And I'm thinking, I did not. I did not.
Miscommunication somewhere.
Yeah, but he needed to say something.
Yeah.
I felt like, and I feel that was at 16, and I feel like it wasn't honestly until I went to college that I really had a clue what God was calling me to do. And it was something so off of the page that I wasn't ready to hear it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that sometimes when God calls us to do things, he calls us to do things early in our life to prepare for them.
Yeah.
And so when I went to college, I went into teaching because that's what I always knew I wanted to do.
Right.
And got a minor in religion, and because I felt like that was what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in between those years, I decided maybe God's calling me to be a pastor's wife. I don't remember that. I don't think I shared that with my mom.
Right.
And I definitely didn't share it with my brothers because they knew me too well. They would have been like, oh, yeah.
I can see your brother's face is like, okay.
So, then the search begins, as to whose pastor's wife am I?
Yeah.
Or was my pastor right? And am I supposed to be a single missionary?
Yeah.
Because ministry was really what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But not ministry as a leader, ministry as a partner.
Right.
And to me, there's a big difference.
There is. Well, there's a perfect segue. I was just about to jump into it, but you took the words right out of my mouth. You talked about your college. You and I have something very in common of where we spent some time. You went to college down in Charleston, South Carolina, and you lived there for a while.
Yeah.
And I lived in Somerville, which I'm not even 10 minutes. My family is not even 10 minutes away from Charleston Southern, which back in the day was Baptist College.
It was the spot.
And so talk to me about, you lived all over the place, and then you landed in Charleston. How did that come about? What made you want to go to Baptist College back in the day? Talk to me about those years.
If I'm be real with you, there was not really anything that made me go to Baptist College other than the fact that it was close to home.
Right.
So
it's real close to home.
Yeah, literally.
It's a couple streets down the road.
Literally. And being the oldest of four, my dad had never graduated from college, neither had my mom.
Oh, wow.
And so the expense of college was really overwhelming in our household. And if I can be just straightforward honest with you, the night that I told my dad I wanted to go to college, he informed me that women stayed home to have children and raise them.
Oh.
And so it was a cross between shock and, oh, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
kind of a feeling. And I don't know, I think it was God who just placed the words, and I said, and what if I can find the money to go to school? He said, well, that's the only way you're going to college. And he wasn't being ugly. It was just not a thought in his mind.
Yeah.
And so
he had to go off what he knew.
Yeah. And so fortunately for me, I had an uncle who was already at Baptist College.
Okay.
And he was doing some recruiting. And so he helped me through the paperwork of the financial aid office, which honestly, I spent many a day crying over the bills and that kind of stuff. I mean, I just did.
Yeah.
And I lived at home for the first year, but to save money.
Yeah.
So by the time the first year was over, I think to my dad, I proved my worth by my grades. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, although he never footed the bill for me to go to college, he didn't disagree with me being there.
Right. He said, if you can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
Help.
But it was, he made it very truly, plainly known that the bill I was creating for myself was my responsibility.
Yeah.
So, when Steve and I got married, we started, both of us, with college debt. And you survive it. But, it was the right place for me to be, and I know that.
Yeah. And so talk to me about being in college down there. I've heard a lot of stories, and I've heard that it's just a great place to go. Did going there help? I would think going there helped shape you into who you are and kind of molded you into who God wanted you to be?
Yeah, I think the Bible studies after schools, after classes were over that I was involved in, for sure the BSU, and just spending time cutting up with people who were people of faith makes all the difference in the world, because just because it's a Baptist college campus doesn't make it a Baptist college school.
Right, yep.
And there were more crazy people there than I've ever met. Crazy in a fun way, crazy in a Christ-like way, and then crazy like, oh my gosh.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
Yeah, so I do feel that way. I think that I think I went with some I know my own way through the Bible mentality. And some of my professors took me kind of sideways for a little bit, where I had to learn to study on my own and decide what was truth and what wasn't truth. Because I don't feel that, other than Jesus, that all the things in the Bible are interpreted the same way.
Absolutely.
So I think it was a time of growth for me to figure out who I felt like I was before I mixed a family in it.
Right. Well, and a lot of people, there's the old saying of, your faith is not your mom and dad's faith. Your mom and dad's faith is should be a good foundation and a good starting place to pour those things of belief into you and help you. But as you get older, and it's something I've had to learn even just in the last couple of years of being on my own and growing up, I can't rely on what my mom and dad told me. I have to go forth and figure out what I believe.
Well, it doesn't mean as much to you if it's not yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you got to test the waters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's where you find yourself.
Yeah.
And where God places you.
Yeah. So you're at Baptist College, and you, you're doing life down there, and you meet a man named Steve Brown.
Oh my gosh!
Talk to me about that man and that whole time.
I met him through BSU.
Baptist Student Union.
Yeah. So, it was a fun place that we went to. We met once a week and did just fun activities, and they had Bible study and music and just a family-type atmosphere where you did fun things. And so I met him there, and then we went through to a BSU retreat, which was like for a weekend, and it was at Toccoa Falls, oddly enough.
Yep.
And on the way, we sat next to each other on the bus, and we just got to know each other. And I really, I liked him a lot, but I didn't know, And then on and on it went. He was fraternity president, and so I was like, oh, he's trouble. He's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
He's
but one of those.
yeah. And then oddly enough, through a bet was how we started dating.
Yep.
And what I learned was that he had made a bet with his fraternity brothers that he could date this list of girls that he had made himself.
Oh, man.
Yeah, what an ego, right? But I was the last one on the list that he dated. And
save the best for last.
Is what he got stuck with. But his best friend, Bud Summers, had told me that I needed to watch out for him because he would date girls twice, but he would not date somebody 3 times. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
And so when he called me to ask me out for the 3rd time, I can remember just covering the end of the receiver with my hand and just like about to choke myself out because I couldn't believe that this was really happening. And so we did go out, and it's been who we are ever since, So I don't think I dated him thinking I was going to marry him.
Right.
But I think God put that together, and I'm good with that, honestly.
Yeah. And so he went into the ministry.
Yeah.
He's a full-time pastor. And, earlier you said that you had a calling to be a pastor's wife.
Yeah.
Or a single missionary. When you met him and when you got to know him, was that calling still on your life, or was
100%. Yeah.
Could you see that path with him?
I could, and I wondered,
Yeah.
you know, is this what I've been created for?
Yeah.
Because I do believe that. I think that we go a lot of different directions, and then when we get to the right spot, we're stunned by it.
Yeah.
And yet expect it at the same time.
Yeah. So, you know, y'all, I talked with him on a previous episode, and we talked about how, you know, y'all started at, you know, some smaller churches and kind of worked your way up to some bigger ones, and have experienced a lot of different things. You know, you accept the calling in your life of being a pastor's wife, and you marry Steve, and talk to me about those first few years of just being a pastor's wife and kind of learning the ropes and kind of learning what to do and what not to do and what to say and just
so
that
difficult.
lifestyle.
So difficult. So the best thing probably, Adrian, that ever happened to me was my pastor's name was James Storm, and his wife, she was wonderful, to say the least. And when we went to him for marriage counseling, he said, I want us to go to Shoney's, that was the place, and have lunch together, and I'd like Mrs. Storm to come so that you can have some conversation with her.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I idolized her, so I was okay with me.
Yeah.
You know, but have lunch with the pastor and his wife was kind of nerve-wracking at the same time.
That's a big deal.
But right there in front of God and everybody, Steve included, she informed me of all kinds of things. She said, there's going to be times that Steve's going to meet with women, and you're going to say, how was your day, honey? And he's going to say, well, I can't really talk to you about it. And then there are going to be times that you're going to know who he met with, and you're going to wonder how things went.
Yeah.
You know, and on she went, and she was just so brutally honest with me.
Yeah.
And I didn't walk away from it thinking, what have I gotten myself into? It was more like, wow, I must have needed that. What's my future going to be?
Yeah.
Because I think God goes in front of us and gives us information like that we need, but we don't really understand yet.
Right.
And so she was probably the catalyst to me surviving our marriage, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, we were in Orangeburg, which was a wonderful church. He had served there as minister of youth, and so to come back home to say after seminary just felt like the right thing to do. But something so simple. They came and they helped picked up our furniture in a U-Haul van, and the two deacons did, and they drove it to South Carolina.
Yeah.
We pull up in the driveway, and I've got this mentality of my very first house, because we had lived in an apartment at seminary.
Yep.
And how I'm going to decorate it all, and what it's going to be like. There must have been 40 people standing in the driveway.
Oh, wow.
And as we pulled in the driveway, and I'm going to go through the parsonage, you know, to look around. Oh, no, the back of the truck comes up, and people just start grabbing boxes out, and they're just taking it.
Working faster than you can think.
And they're putting they had already put shelf paper on the cabinets in the kitchen, and they had curtains up already in the house. And
wow.
I mean, they took such great care of us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm kind of standing in the background trying not to cry, because it was not happening at all like I thought it was going to. I thought Steve and I were going to put it together and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think all along what God's tried to teach me is not to be possessive of what I think is mine. Because what is mine is temporary.
Right.
I mean, it really is.
What is yours is his.
Yeah, 100%. And everything that happened that day happened out of love for him and for me and for our best. But sure didn't feel that way as a new bride. You know, it was like the first house I wanted to do it. You know, but realizing how important those people were going to be in our future, because we had Heather there and we had Courtney while at that church too. And they're a big part of our past.
Yeah.
Got us through some rough times when we didn't know. So, it's just, I think the older I have become, the more I have realized that everything He gives us for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and that sometimes we don't know what those reasons are at that point in our life.
Yeah.
But as we go and we look back at it, we're like, oh, man, He was putting those pieces together all along,
Yeah. Do you think being a pastor's wife is everything that you thought it was going to be? Now that you've been in it for a long time.
It's funny that you asked me that, because one of my Sunday school members asked me a couple of weeks ago, do you think you live like all pastors' wives? And I don't know what other pastors' wives live like.
I don't think you do. I've seen some, and not to say that some are better than others, or I think you put it exactly the way it needed to. It's a calling. A lot of people think that it's just that it's a job, and it is, but it's a calling. There are a lot of people who are married and who the pastors are phenomenal and their spouses are phenomenal, but it takes a very special person to be that and to be in that specific role. There's pastors' wives that are people of that can encourage you and love on you, but to be specifically that to so many people, it's a huge calling on somebody's life.
I spent some time while we were in Orangeburg being sick a lot, and went to a doctor one time, and he said, Miss Brown, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. The health problems you have are not real. And I said, I think I need a new doctor.
He don't know what he's talking about.
Really, really angry with him at that point. But I think he pointed the finger at me, and he was 100% right, that once I realized I did not have to please the whole world.
Yep.
But I had to live my life between me and God. Not me and God and Steve.
Right.
Not me and God and the church, but me and God.
Right.
And once I got that in place and could step behind the fact that if Jesus didn't please everybody, I'm sure not going to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
Number one. And then number two, that, again, all things are temporary, and that the love of God is what matters at the end of the day, then it kind of aligns itself for you.
Yeah.
And so what I found at that point in time, once and I'm not talking about an overnight thing.
Sure.
I had to really process it because I was really angry.
Yeah.
And it made me angrier when I talked to Steve about it, and he felt the doctor was right. So it was a lot of processing. I want to be real with you. And so what I discovered was I had to find my ministry.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I was trying to live Steve's ministry.
Yeah.
I was trying to be all things to him, and wasn't doing a very good job of it. At least I didn't feel like I was.
Yeah.
So then I decided, probably by that time I had Heather, and I decided that maybe family was my ministry.
Yeah.
And so that's where I pointed my head and my heart and poured it into her, and then later on to Courtney. And by that time, children just kind of change your life.
Yeah.
And help you get perspective sometimes. They're hard,
Mm-hmm.
really hard. But at the same time, I think it was when I realized that through their eyes, I could learn more about God than I had ever known.
Yeah.
Because the questions she was asking about Jesus is a real thing when you're teaching those lessons to little ones, and their eyes light up, and they're learning about it for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And you see their excitement.
Yeah.
Then you think, I'm so separated from hearing this story of Jesus for so long. And so the renewal of my faith came through my children.
Yeah.
And it kind of woke me up to the fact that every day I have that opportunity to see him. It's not just at church. That's the thing for me, is that it's not just at church. It's all over the place. It's when I go to the grocery store and I see somebody and they look me in the eyes and I can just share a smile.
Yeah.
Or when I'm on my walk in the afternoon and I see the birds or the breeze in the air.
Yeah.
Or just anything, all points back to God.
Yeah.
Makes a difference.
Yeah. Talk to me about your first teaching job.
Let me think about this. Not Sunday school.
Right.
Because I always taught Sunday school.
Right.
I mean, that was just my spot. So I would tell you about Walterboro when I got to be a kindergarten teacher. And Brooke, who is here in our church now, her little brother was in my class. His name was Tyler. He's passed away from cancer at a really young age.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was going through chemotherapy and just all kinds of blood draws and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he just talked as though everybody at prayer time understood that what it was to be in the hospital and that kind of thing. So
he thought it was normal.
He did. For him, it was very normal. For everybody else, little people are so neat because for everybody else, they're just sitting there listening to his story, and it's not bothering them a bit. They're not asking questions. They're just taking it for fact.
Yeah.
And so Tyler's telling us about his life, and I'm watching his life as he's living it. It was a wonderful job, a great place because I got to see children sharing God's love all the time.
Yeah.
And I got to help them remember why they were doing what they were doing, while at the same time teaching them to read, which is wonderfully fun, teaching them math and colors and numbers and just all those kinds of things, watching them on the playground. So, again, I feel like children impact my life more than I do theirs.
Yeah.
Just by being around them.
Yeah. So what made you want to get into a leadership position in terms of like being a director or and leading a daycare, a preschool, a school, principal, that kind of job?
I'm gonna be brutal. It was my age.
Okay.
So when we moved to Georgia, one of our friends here at church talked with me about an opening that was going on at their daycare. It was the Leitners.
Yep.
So I went and I interviewed for the daycare job. And the owner said, well, I don't have a director's position. I had never been a director, so that didn't matter. But I have an opening in our infants. And I was like, oh, I love babies.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll take it. So I started there. And then, through the time of being there, they did need a director. And I had been the director at the end of my kindergarten stint at the church in Walterboro. And so I told him he was wanting to grow his business. And I said, I can grow this business.
Yeah.
And he said, you're doing a good job in the infant room. And I said, yeah, but I could do a good job with the school.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'll think about it. And so in time, I worked in that room. I worked in the 2s room. I worked in the 3s room.
Worked all over, yeah.
Yeah. Got to know people. And finally, he gave me my opportunity. And director's training is not free.
Right.
Director's training is like $500 back in the day. I don't know what it is now.
Probably way more.
It was a lot. And I didn't have that kind of money.
Right.
And she said, well, if you'll work for me for 5 years, then I'll pay for your director's training. And I said, okay.
Yep.
And so I signed the dotted line. I took the director's training and stayed at that school for a long time before coming to a school here, which here in Roswell. And I did that when Steve's dad moved in with us. He had dementia. And I was like, I need to be closer to home. Yeah. Because where I was working was a 45-minute drive. And so literally, I was 10 minutes from my front door.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
can't beat it.
And so you were at Laone Academy in Roswell, and you made such an impact there. Talk to me about your time there, the things that you learned, the knowledge that you gained, and just being in that role, the responsibilities.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I learned was that I wasn't from Roswell.
Yep.
Different strokes for different folks. So people in South Carolina were old school.
Yep.
And knew me to be the preacher's wife and treated me like the preacher's wife even when I was the teacher.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
When I went to the school that I talked about previously in Cumming, they didn't know I was a preacher's wife. It didn't matter to them that I was a preacher's
You
wife.
were just Jan Brown.
They just wanted me to love on their babies, and I'm good at that.
Yeah.
And then when I stopped at Laone, I went in, and there was another director there. Her name was Jill. Wonderful person. And I filled out an application. No, I asked for an application, and she said, well, what kind of work are you looking for? And I said, well, I'm a director, but I think I want to go back in the classroom. And she said, okay, what age? And I said, I don't really care. I love being with children. And she said, okay, well, I'll give you an application, but you need to fill it out here. And I said, I had worked all day long at the other school, and I was like, okay, I'll fill it out here.
Yeah.
So then the owner of the school came out of her office, and I talked with Jennifer for a while. And then a family came out of the 1-year-old room, and the mother needed to talk with Jennifer. So we're all there in the lobby sitting in on the furniture, and the little guy came over to me and while the mom and Jennifer were talking, and we just started reading the story. I just started loving on the baby because he was loving on me.
Yeah.
And 2 hours later, I left with a job.
Wow.
To be the 2-year-old's teacher, the secondary teacher, not the lead.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is going to be better.
Yeah.
Because I need to back out of directors for a little bit. And I've got my hands full with Steve's dad, know. And so I worked with the twos for about 2, maybe 3 months.
Okay.
And one day I bent down to talk to a little fella who was in trouble in timeout, and I was trying to get him out of timeout, to rationalize with him, and he spit in my face.
Oh, boy.
And I was like, oh. And so I just stood up, and I told my teacher, I said, I'll be right back. I got to calm down for a minute, right?
Yeah.
And so I went out, and I went up to the bathroom, of course, washed my face and told the owner what had happened. And I said, I just need a few minutes to prayer walk or something.
Yeah.
And so I went outside the door, and then I just started walking around the building, and I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? I'm too old to be in the classroom, because I really honestly wanted to wear him out. I just wanted to reprimand that little guy and really tell him about himself. And I was like, I can't be in the classroom. I'm really just too old for this.
Yeah.
And so I did go back in the classroom that day, but I went home and felt really, really defeated. And I went back to school the next morning for a couple of days, and honestly was kind of like looking through help wanted ads online.
Yeah.
And I found another school who needed a director, and I applied to it, and they set me up for an interview. And so I asked for the afternoon off, and I went to the interview, and I accepted the job. And I came back to Jennifer, and I told her, and she said, why didn't you tell me? I said, because you already have a director. That's not my role here.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to stir up drama.
Right.
So I'm just going to go someplace where they need me. But I would create a job. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't give you that chance. I said, but I've already given my word. So literally, Adrian, I went to that job, and I worked for about 2 hours, and I was like, this is havoc. Absolute craziness. I do not belong in this school. I can't change this school. I mean, it was like from teacher to teacher, there was drama.
Yeah.
From teacher to the office, there was drama, and I was like, I don't have enough energy to fix this and handle things that are going on at home.
Right.
And so I got off my high horse, and I went back to loan, and I told Jennifer, I said, I need my job back. And she said, I've already hired somebody in the twos. I said, okay.
Yeah.
And so I said, no hard feelings. I made my decision, and I'm leaving. And she said, well, come in my office for a few minutes. And I was like, oh, what's fixing to happen? Is she fixing to fuss at me? You're so dumb for leaving. I mean, you hear those thoughts in your mind.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, here's what I can do. I can make you assistant director.
Okay.
That's what I said was, okay,
Yeah.
when can I start?
Sure.
She
Great.
said, you can come back tomorrow. And I was like, okay, that's great. And what am I going to do? She said, whatever I tell you to do. And
Okay.
I would like you to also be in charge of the curriculum, which is what I love.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay. Okay, I went home. I told Steve. He thought I was crazy, but that's what I did. And so then not long after that, Jill, the director of the program, let Jennifer know that she was moving to Florida to retire. And so I fortunately got to step back in that role.
Good.
And took the school from there. I think what I learned the most, I started by telling you that I'm not from Roswell.
Yeah.
What I learned from this job the most was that I am from Roswell.
Yeah.
Is that there's diversity in Atlanta
Absolutely.
that a lot of places don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time ever, I found the same community that I had found as a teenager on the air base.
Wow.
I found a community that was racially diverse,
Yeah.
that had different languages,
Absolutely.
and then really didn't notice that we were different from one another.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I belong here. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Because kind of living in a small town like Orangeburg or Walterboro, there's no diversity. You are either this or that, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But you kind of have to. I would say you kind of have to play a certain part to fit in.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, and I don't feel like Roswell is like that.
No. Not
You
at
don't
all.
have to be one way or another, and
Just be you.
yeah, but if you find a place where you don't fit, then you just find a place where you do.
Right.
I mean, and for me, that's what North River has been for us, is that they've allowed us to come into the fellowship of this church and feel what I feel.
Yeah.
Feel excited some days and tired other days.
Yeah.
And it's been acceptable.
Yeah.
So
It's been
been a big relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jan, I want to thank you again so much for talking with me and sharing about your life and your jobs and just what God has been doing for you. I love you, and I'm just so thankful for you.
I love you too, Adrian. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.